Merci à vous tous, merci. Vive la France! Vive la liberté!
Vive la France! Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Steve Smith. I'm chairman of the Greenland Board of Selectmen. I'd like to welcome you all here this afternoon on this glorious day. In 1824, it wasn't so lovely. I hear it was pouring buckets of rain. And so I welcome you to the town of Greenland. Thank you all for coming. Just a few recognizes. I want to make a recognition to some of our selectmen. Vaughn Morgan is in the audience. Stefan Toth. Do I have anybody else? And Laura Malloy. There she is over there. Yep, thank you. New Hampshire State Representative Dennis Malloy. And somewhere in the audience is Senator Deborah Atchler. Oh, there she is, hiding under the tree. Okay. And Jackie Grote, there we go. Okay, thank you. Thank you all for coming. And like I said, this is a glorious day. It's beautiful out here. A little warm, pardon my sweat. And so I want to make a few words. And my family has been here since the 1700s, so I know a little bit about Greenland. From stories and, I won't say rumors, but you know how it goes with a family. So, yes, in 1824, this was a small community. And it has since grown to over 4,000 residents. And we welcome all of you here today in the Marquis de Lafayette. Thank you, sir, for coming.
Thank you, monsieur, for the invitation, monsieur.
So we'll have a small presentation now by members of our Historical Society. And first up is Jim Ralston.
Thank you, Steve. General Lafayette, we are gathered here, are happy in this opportunity of greeting a distinguished benefactor of our country with the warmest hope. You and we are no longer the youths we were, but our love of liberty and of freedom to make what we choose of the life we have continues to be a noble pursuit for us all, and is the eternal bond we share. The important services which you rendered this people in the day of their distress, the devotedness manifested in their perilous cause, the dangers which you sought for their relief, our services our nation has gone on to implement. We continue to work on behalf of democracies around the globe which are under siege. We would lead you to our institutions of learning, charity, and religion. In 1824, Greenland, this pleasant, abiding place, was already home to a school and a church, and many public meeting houses. The love of learning was evident in the school. The desire for all peoples to worship in a safe place was evidenced by the taverns, where many, because these roads, Post Road and Portsmouth Avenue, were the main crossroads of our region. And people have always loved to gather for a meal and a rest. The pubs were many, but are no more. When the road named for you was built, that road became the leading hub of traffic along the coast. In our day, they have become private dwellings. In 1824, when we all stood outdoors to greet you, the ground was wet. Trees were dripping because the night before I had seen a heavy rain. That is a life along the seacoast. In those days, our hills and valleys were covered with flocks, apple orchards, and smiling in abundance. Today, they have become developments of housing for people enjoying remote work in office parks, people who are enjoying the effects of those principles of liberty established nearly 250 years ago. as a zealous advocate for civil liberty, we bid you welcome. As a brave defender of an oppressed people, we make you welcome. As a friend and associate of our Washington, we bid you welcome. Our nation's guest.
I shall endeavor to make myself heard with this voice amplification device. Perhaps a latter and lesser known invention of the Dr. Franklin, with which I am heretofore unfamiliar. But merci mes amis, merci à vous tous et à vous toutes. Thank you all for the warm and hospitable welcome that I have received. I am indeed overjoyed to find myself among the patriotic citizens of New Hampshire and of Greenland. It brings me great pleasure to see the prosperity and happiness which everywhere surrounds us. Monsieur spoke of the importance of education, and I find myself equally overjoyed at the enthusiasm and the patriotism of the new generations here with us today. The education of our youths is surely essential to preserving the freedom and liberty which everywhere surrounds us and is protected by this great and noble republic. Mes amis, my obligations to the United States far exceed any merit that I might plausibly claim. They date from a time when I had the good fortune to be adopted as a young soldier, a favored son of your country. And they have been continued to me over many decades of confidence and affection. And today, thanks to the gratifying invitation of President Monroe, I have been greeted by a series of welcomes, each one of which would more than compensate for the exertions of an entire life of service. And for that I offer once again my most profound and sincere gratitude. But I cannot help but reflect, merci monsieur, merci mes amis, merci. But I cannot help but reflect in these moments of the journey which brought that young soldier here as a different man to stand before you today. My journey began in the summer of 1775 when I was but 17 years old and serving in the French Royal Army in the city of Metz in eastern France, when news first reached the capitals of Europe that a group of insurgents, as they were then known, had taken up arms against the King's own soldiers, the King of Britain's soldiers in two towns outside of Boston, Concord and Lexington, as well as the news that a Congress of colonial Americans had selected a gentleman from Virginia, George Washington, to lead a continental American army. And upon hearing this news, mes amis, my heart was enlisted immediately. Because I was 17 years old, I was very far from my home in Paris, from my family in Auvergne, and I found military service in France excruciatingly dull and boring. I reasoned that if I was to win glory on the battlefield, I should go where all of the exciting battles were being fought, and that was on this side of the Atlantic. But it did not take long for me to understand your quest for liberty within the very fiber of my being. I swore an oath to conquer or die for America, and the days that I have spent fighting for her I shall count among the happiest of my entire life. Of course, when I arrived in the capital and presented my credentials to the Congress, they did not know what to do with me. I did not know that I was merely the latest in a long line of foreign volunteers seeking to make a fortune off of the American cause. No. I stood before Congress and I told them, as I stand before you now, that I believed I had earned the right to two favors only. The first was to be permitted to serve your cause, and the second would be to do so at my own expense as a volunteer. And upon hearing that I was willing to work without pay, I suddenly gained Congress's attention. But they made me a major general. They gave me no troops to command. I was to be considered a decorative, a glamorous supernumerary with an honorary commission and a decorative rank, and I began to ask, why it was I had come all of this way to America. I received my answer just a few days later, when I was invited to dine with members of Congress and His Excellency General George Washington. And this is a dinner I shall remember as clearly as though it were yesterday evening. I sat at one end of a very long table. His Excellency sat at the other, and everyone was distracted by his presence. I was the only one who had never met him before. And he must have considered me no more than a puppy dog who had wandered in off of the street. But if those were indeed his sentiments, he did not give voice to them. Instead, he complimented me on the service and sacrifice that I had rendered in support of the American cause, and told me it would please him if I called the quarters of the Commander-in-Chief my home, and considered myself a part of his family. And this word struck to me like a sort of bolt, family. Because there is a word in French, the word famille, but it refers only to relatives of the blood, you see. Shortly thereafter, I learned that His Excellency was referring to his military family, the officers under his command who staffed his headquarters. But for a moment, I believed His Excellency was stating his intention to adopt me as his son, right then and there. And so, what option did I have? At 19 years old, I readily accepted. In time, of course, His Excellency General Washington became to me as much a father as I have ever known. And I am proud to say that the many veterans of our great and noble conflict and our revolutionary recollections, I consider them equally as much a part of my family today. Mes amis, the approbation of the American people for my conduct during our revolution and the vicissitudes of the European revolutions that followed is to me the highest reward I could ever hope to attain. Well may I stand firm and proud when in their names, in your names, I can be said to have remained ever faithful to those American principles of liberty, equality, true social order, and remained ever worthy of the American education it has been my happy lot to receive, the devotion to which, as it has been since my earliest youth, so it shall continue to be until my latest breath. Mes amis citoyens de New Hampshire, je vous souhaite tous et toutes une très agréable continuation de votre journée. I wish you all a very pleasant continuation of your day, and thank you once again for your warm and hospitable welcome. Merci beaucoup, vive l'indépendance, vive la liberté. Merci, merci à vous tous.
We are 200 years ago. I'm Joe Fredericks. I'm the immediate past president of the Greenland Historical Society. 200 years ago, we had a triumphal arch right behind us.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't build one today, but we did also, 200 years ago, present the general with a laurel wreath and olive branches, along with a flowery deposition on his greatness. And while we thoroughly agree on his greatness, today we are honored to replicate that ceremony in our own humble way by presenting a wreath and carrot and food for his journey forward. So,
Merci, monsieur.
hurrah, hurrah, hurrah.
Merci, mes amis. Merci, you do me a great kindness, monsieur. Merci. May the spirit of liberty continue to blossom, as do the plumes in this beautiful wreath which I have been given. Merci à vous tous. Merci.
Take aim! Ready? Again. Fire. Cover. Half-cock firelock. Hammer stall done. Shoulder firelocks. Here firelocks. Shoulder firelocks. Right about face. Right command. Hip hip. Huzzah! Hip hip. Huzzah! Hip hip. Huzzah!
Merci les soldats, et return your salute with patriotism and enthusiasm. Merci. Merci à vous tous.
Dismissed.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This concludes our program for today, and thank you all for coming out. Please help yourself to the cookies and iced tea and lemonade in the gazebo. Thank you. No lemonade.